So, a couple of years ago, when I was in college, I found myself in a really creepy situation. I was just a 20-year-old guy at the time, minding my own business, when things took a turn for the worse. It all started innocently enough on Valentine's Day. I began receiving mysterious text messages from an unknown number, with that whole secret admirer vibe. At first, I thought it was just a prank from one of my tech-savvy friends who were with me in the room. I tried to play it cool and asked them if they were messing with me, but they all denied it. I believed them, despite their terrible lying skills. The situation got even stranger when I received a phone call from the same number. A voice on the other end asked for my name, and when I confirmed it, they hung up and went back to texting me. Things quickly escalated when this person started asking personal questions. They seemed obsessed with finding out if I had any plans for the evening and kept pushing to meet up. Meanwhile, I was getting random images sent to me from an email with the username, John Doe. That was my confirmation that this wasn't a regular phone number, and now I had a username to connect to the mysterious person. Now, I'm not sure if they intended it, but I actually enjoy unraveling mysteries like this. So, I decided to play along and texted them back, trying to gather as much information as possible without revealing anything about myself. I created a profile of the person based on the information I collected and started narrowing down the possibilities. But instead of scaring them off, my curiosity seemed to encourage them. They kept insisting that I send pictures and became more insistent about it. And then they sent me a really bizarre one. It was a picture of a white lacy dress hanging in a closet, accompanied by the text, "My wedding dress for when I marry you," along with various heart and love emojis. That sent chills down my spine. They continued prying about where I would be that evening, but I refused to give them any details. Then they dropped a bombshell. They asked if I lived in apartment 68, and to my horror, that was indeed my apartment. I recognized the style of the apartment they were in based on a picture they had sent earlier, so I decided to throw them off guard. I replied, "You live in B2 complex, right?" And they were taken aback, asking how I knew. I claimed I recognized their door, as all the apartments in that complex had the same color door frame, which I had noticed in one of the pictures. The conversation fizzled out after that, and I didn't receive any more texts. I didn't go to the party they mentioned either because, well, I was working. Fast forward to the following school year in October. I was a senior, busy as hell, when I received another text from an unknown number. They once again asked if it was me, using my full name. I decided to play dumb, pretending I wasn't freaking out that after so many months, this person was contacting me again, and I still hadn't figured out their identity. This time, their questions became even more personal and really weirded me out. They insisted that not knowing who they were was part of the mystery, and that they had too much to lose by revealing their identity. They claimed it wasn't because they were being cruel, but that it was just better if I didn't know. I was tired of this whole situation, but I still wanted to gather more details. So I engaged with them, but only to the bare minimum to keep things going. Now we're in December, nearing the end of the semester. That night, they started calling me repeatedly. I rejected every call, but they just wouldn't stop. I think they called me about 18 times that night. Frustrated and scared, I eventually turned my phone off. The following week, I was in the class I was a teaching assistant for. Students were presenting their final projects, and I had multiple tabs open on the projection computer. 2 different students had their work on Google Drive. When the second student logged into their account, they didn't open a private window, which logged out the first student. I happened to notice this, and my heart practically stopped. The username the student logged in with was the same as the username of the John Doe account that had been sending me photos. I tried to act cool and pretended to be busy with something else until the student finished opening their work. I thanked them, and they left the projection booth, completely oblivious to their mistake. Inside, I was going crazy for the rest of the class. Finally, after almost a year, I knew who it was. she had slipped up, and I was more scared than ever. This person had a history of being creepy around my friends, and though she had never personally interacted with me outside of class, my friends had shared some strange experiences with her. I decided to seek help and made an appointment with a counselor who seemed genuinely concerned. They offered to look into the situation, which gave me some hope. But a couple of weeks later, I received an email saying that the student in question was going abroad the following semester, so they weren't going to take any action. I insisted that at least some temporary measures be put in place, but to my disappointment, nothing happened. I guess I shouldn't have expected much, considering the school's reputation for not caring about such issues. Fortunately, I didn't run into her again, and she didn't text me anymore. So, for the time being, that's where the story ends. But I can't help but wonder what might happen next. Will she resurface? Or has she finally moved on? Only time will tell, and until then, I'll remain cautious and hope that this chilling chapter of my life remains closed. I'm this 20-year-old, short and petite chick, just minding my own business at Subway. I've got a soft spot for being nice to people, even when they give me the creeps. It's just my nature, you know? Anyway, let me introduce you to this dude who used to come in all the time, like clockwork. He's somewhere between 35 and 40, and he's got a real obsession with my stretched ears and my facial piercings. Every damn day, he'd hit me up with questions about him. And get this, he'd sit at his little table for hours, just staring at me while I served other customers. Talk about major weird vibes. This whole routine goes on for a couple of weeks. Each day, he'd ask for my number, claiming he had all these plugs and tunnels he wanted to give me. But I always shot him down, politely of course. Now, here's where things get real messed up. One day, my manager had to run an errand, so I'm left all alone in the store. It's dead slow, so I'm just chilling in the back, messing around on my phone. Suddenly, I hear the door chime, but when I look up, there's nobody there. Then I catch a glimpse of the dude scurrying past the front of the store like he's on a mission or something. And you won't believe what happens next. The freaking store phone starts ringing. I answer, trying to keep my cool. "Thanks for calling Subway. How can I help you?" Then I hear his voice on the other end. "Hey, it's the girl with the killer ears, right?" I'm like, yeah? Who's this?" And he gets all creepy. "Are you alone in the back room right now? You working all by yourself?" That's when the alarm bells in my head start blaring. I hang up, shoot a text to my manager, filling her in on the whole situation, hoping she hurries back. But this nut job doesn't give up. He calls again, asking me the weirdest sh*t stuff like what I do with him in a locked room, whether I've got a boyfriend, and why I'm playing hard to get. Total freak show. Finally, my manager returns in the midst of the lunch rush. She takes the next call, and her face goes pale. I never found out exactly what he said, but just seeing her expression sent chills down my spine. She warns him that if he calls or shows up again, she's calling the cops. You'd think that'd be the end of it, right? Nope, not even close. A week later, I'm wrapping up my shift, ready to head to my car parked out front. I glance outside, and there he is, standing by my damn car, peering inside like a total psycho. Oh, did I mention I left one of the back doors unlocked? Yeah, I'm that kind of genius. So I'm watching this creep crawl his way into my back seat, shutting the door behind him. The sick bastard was planning God knows what when I got in. Thankfully, my manager locks up the front door and dials 911. The cops show up, and let me tell you, they practically have to drag this guy out of my car. They slap the cuffs on him, and what do they find? A freaking butcher knife, some ropes, and a rag soaked in chloroform. If I hadn't looked up when I did, I'd probably be 6 feet under right now. Talk about a close freaking call. Alright, prepare yourself for a bone-chilling tale that unfolded during my first year of university. It was October, the perfect time for spooky encounters. Now let me paint you a picture of our dorms. Each floor required a keycard for access, meaning that even though different floors were in the same building, they were off limits to one another. So, there I was, nursing a sports injury that put a damper on my Halloween party plans. A real bummer for a horror enthusiast like myself. However, I decided to make the most of it by helping others with their costumes and makeup. After finishing up, I packed away my makeup and settled in for a movie night in my room. Out of the blue, this guy appeared, introducing himself and striking up a conversation. We exchanged email addresses, and I bid him goodnight as I walked back to my room. Oddly enough, he followed me inside despite my clear intention to enter alone. Awkward vibes were creeping up on me, and I tried to drop hints that he needed to leave. Unfortunately, subtlety wasn't his strong suit. I had to assert myself and say, "You need to leave my room now." I brushed it off, thinking he might have been intoxicated or something. But I couldn't shake off the mystery of how he ended up on my floor without any party companions. That night, as I checked my email, I discovered 5 messages from none other than Creep. His first email exclaimed, "Hey, I'm so glad we're friends." The subsequent ones questioned my absence online. Alarm bells started ringing in my head. Days passed, and the guy kept knocking on my door while I was studying. I explained that I needed privacy, but he persisted in trying to barge into my room. I stood my ground, firmly declaring my need to study. The next day, he was back at my door, and the day after that. Frustrated, I began pretending I wasn't home. But then, one day, there was a knock on the door, and when I peeked through the peephole, no one was there. Assuming it was the mailman, I opened the door only to find Creep standing there. It turned out he had started hiding from the peephole to increase his chances of catching me off guard. I immediately warned my roommate not to open the door if he was lurking outside. I also informed my fellow floor residents about the situation, urging them not to let him onto our floor, regardless of whatever sob story he concocted. But things took a darker turn. A few days later, while I was on the bus heading home, I received a text from a floormate, warning me not to come back because Creep was sitting right in front of my door, patiently waiting. Panicked, I diverted to a friend's house for the night. When I finally returned home, I discovered that he had waited for an astonishing 4 hours before leaving. That sent shivers down my spine. His obsession escalated. He started lurking outside our building, following me wherever I went. I lacked the courage to confront him directly, so I tried to be more passive. I never acknowledged him, never showed any sign of attention, but he persisted in shadowing me to class, the cafeteria, and even attempted to tail me back to my room, attempting to gain access to my floor. I finally reached out to the resident advisor, RA, a senior student responsible for overseeing the floor. I poured out my harrowing experience, hoping for support. The RA spoke to the Creep's RA, only to be met with disbelief. Creep had been spinning tales to his RA, claiming we were best friends and even dating. My RA tried to explain my discomfort, but the other RA sided with Creep. It felt like hitting a dead end. Thankfully, there was one thing that seemed to deter him. Creep refrained from approaching me when I was in the company of a group. So, my floormates rallied together. We became a united front, going to dinner as a group, accompanying each other for drinks or second helpings, walking to class, and waiting for the bus in packs. Creep managed to sneak onto my floor once when someone else was entering, forcefully wedging his foot in the door. However, I managed to hide in another room and, when he left my door to wait for me in the television lounge, I swiftly descended the stairs, circumnavigated the building, and slipped into my room unnoticed. Then came the phone calls. I had never given him my number, yet he somehow acquired my mobile and room phone. Initially, it was 1 or 2 calls a day until I mustered the courage to tell him to leave me alone. That's when the floodgates opened, and calls poured in every hour, him begging and pleading for me to talk to him. Without caller ID, I had to answer the phone due to school and my part-time job. By this point, it was November, and I was a wreck. Simple tasks like getting food or walking to a bus stop became meticulously planned endeavors. The stress was taking a toll on me, impeding my recovery from the injury. I was losing weight and looking sickly. Desperate for a solution, I returned to the RA and poured my heart out, begging for help. She took matters into her hands and approached the head of the dorms, laying out the entire horrifying ordeal. I detailed how far things had escalated, and my roommate chimed in, revealing that Creep had followed her on a few occasions, demanding to know my whereabouts. I felt guilty for unwittingly dragging her into this nightmare. Behind closed doors, discussions must have taken place, although I can only speculate. My best guess is that Creep was warned to leave me alone, with the threat of being expelled from the dorms hanging over his head. There was one last email I received from him, filled with deranged accusations. He called me awful, questioned how I could do this to him, and even suggested that I was cheating on him with other men. After that, the communication abruptly ceased. At first, whenever I spotted him on campus, my instinct was to flee, seeking refuge in the women's toilets. Whether I encountered him in town or on campus, he would merely stare at me, never attempting to approach or get my attention. Just a haunting gaze fixed upon me. I would walk by, feigning obliviousness, but my heart would race uncontrollably. And that, my friend, is the bone-chilling tale of my encounter with Creep. A relentless pursuer who invaded my life, leaving me constantly on edge. It was a haunting experience that left me scarred and forever cautious.